Quackity quack! We are backity back with another episode of the Duck on a Rock Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Colin McDonough, joined by my co-host, Matt McDonough, to talk some NBA tonight. Before we talk finals predictions and some off-the-court craziness from this league, let's talk about the main obsession of two of our three members of the flock, the Boston Celtics. And boy, do we have a lot to discuss. The Celtics have begun the season winless, 0-3 in the first three games, with losses to the Sixers, Knicks, and Pistons. Matt, do you want to start us off with some thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they're not good, and the roster's not really built to win. It can compete. I think there will be games that they'll be respectable, be competitive. I think they'll definitely, if Brown and White go off a couple games, they'll definitely have some wins against some really good teams over the course of the year. But right now, they don't know how to close the game, so that has carried over from the end of last season where they can't close a game. Different roster, same old story, but they also just don't have the players to win consistently in the NBA. So it appears 0-3 heading into a Monday night matchup in New Orleans that it's going to be definitely tough season, perhaps a long season. I'm sure there will be bright spots here and there, but overall, I think it looks like it's going, to be, especially starting 0-3. Obviously, it's a hole you can dig out of, but it's not 0-3 is the best time to be 3 games under 500 is 0-3, but definitely looks like the roster is not built to.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at what happened opening night to the end of the first week of the season, it's such a different feeling than a year ago. A year ago, Celtics blow out the Knicks after raising the banner. You're thinking repeat, and this year it's just it seems like a free fall. So many different players, such a different feeling. But some similarities as well. Opening night against the Sixers, a similar result. They blow a double-digit lead at home, which is what happened twice against the Knicks in the playoffs. This time a smaller lead and a much smaller stakes. But they couldn't make the final winning play, couldn't get the ball to Jaylen Brown. Payton Pritchard gets two chances to win the game against Philadelphia. The first chance, he looked like Matt or I trying to drive to the basket, literally hitting the back of the rim. And then he gets one more decent look at the basket from the side and misses it. Tyrese Maxey and Edgecombe dominated, even though Embiid kind of looked old, hurt, tired, disinterested, and the Celtics still couldn't win their home opener and season opener. This at the same time that BYU, hopeful for the Cougars freshman phenom, tweets, "Let's get it," rooting for the Celtics to start the season. AJ Dybonsa tweets, the Massachusetts native signaling maybe, his rooting interest in where he ends up. That's neither here nor there in October, but with the way the Celtics have started, this is how I think a lot of fans are thinking. The tank is probably already on. The stank is definitely already on. So if they can, like you said, win some fun games during the year, keep interest, that's one thing. But 0-3 winless is still winless, even though the games haven't been complete losses as far as complete blowouts. The Knicks are extremely good. We respect their fans a lot. They're a really good team. They completely outplayed and outcoached the Celtics last year, as well as the second game this year. Even though we can't respect Karl Anthony Towns, he's still flopping, he's still flailing, he's still whining and crying at every call and play. An avid listener of the pod who's a Knicks fan did point out to me that I whine and cry, and the avid listener is right. But I'll say to that, it takes one to know one, and that's how I know I'm right about Towns flopping, flailing, whining, and crying. With all that being said, we'll get to predictions of who wins the East and West and NBA Finals later in this episode. But the Knicks are obviously a contender. The Celtics got blown out in the second quarter of the second game of the season and chipped it away, cut into the lead, gave a sliver of hope in the final few minutes, but still lost in New York, where their season ended last year. And then game three, again, they have an early lead, then lose it to the Pistons in Detroit. Jaylen Brown goes over 40 points. It didn't matter, right? So when you think about what this would look like this year for the Celtics, and okay, Tatum's obviously out for the year, you'd think Brown gets to step up, Derek White gets to step up, Peyton Pritchard. The team needs Tatum, obviously, but when you think about what this team could have started off with, if they were 1-2 or 2-1 with those guys, you'd be thinking, all right, well, these are guys who won the championship in 2024. Brown's a Finals MVP, and you would think to yourself, okay, they have a shot here to at least make things interesting, like we've discussed on episodes in the summer and earlier in the fall on this podcast about the Celtics expectations. But when you start 0-3 and you have Brown look bad at times, White, Pritchard missing shots, no big man whatsoever, the expectations change pretty quickly. And for everyone who in 2024 said Tatum is corny and Brown has aura, and I do think Brown deserved probably Finals MVP, and we love Brown here at Duck Kind of Rock. Tatum, unfortunately, by tearing his Achilles, will probably get some respect finally from NBA fans, more so than scoring over 30 points in a clincher to win the NBA championship, which is sad to say. But, everyone says, well, addition by subtraction when he'd be out. Everyone, non-Celtics fans would say how Tatum got carried to a championship. Now they'll probably switch up and hate on Jaylen Brown again, which they've already started doing. It's just unfortunately Celtics haters. And obviously they're missing players on the roster. Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford even. But the Celtics haters are going to be out, I think, especially early on. And, once the tank fully goes on, I think those haters will then move on to other teams, because the Celtics might be looking like the 2020 Warriors here. But with that being said, just like I said, it takes one to know one. We've been haters too, so we know why some of this credit blame game with Tatum and Brown as far as non-Celtics fans have gone on for years. And this will be a year that they hate on Brown and actually respect Tatum until Tatum comes back.
Well, and like you said, the roster is completely different, so it's not just Tatum's missing; it's a complete overhaul. The other thing is, as you mentioned, with the big men, Kata has to step up. Like, this is his year to start and get minutes. With the transactions that thrust him into that role, he needs to be able to deliver. If they have a chance, like Peyton Pritchard against at Detroit led the team 10 rebounds. So if you're starting point guards leading the team with rebounds, it's probably not the best outlook. And then, just the early reaction here is, again, opening night in Boston, they had a 12-point lead, blew it in the fourth quarter, lost. The Knicks, they went down into a big hole. Was able to make it look respectable at the end by getting the deficit, losing but overall, like today, obviously the worst time to have 17 points is early on. So technically they lost a 17-point lead. Game of runs, which is the NBA, but so at least it wasn't in the fourth quarter, I guess, and you kind of had a idea how the second half would go against Detroit. So the other thing is, and I we'll always love Pritchard for, making the half court shots in a much more limited role in a championship season. But with Pritchard as a point guard, as we've talked prior about it, he's treating it like the Portland Pro-Am. He thinks he's with his buddies in July in his home city. He's dribbling with his head down. It's almost like, a couple of the – it's like when the Patriots were in shotgun a couple of times against Cleveland with one back in the backfield, and, it was a telegraphed run, even though the Patriots against Brown today, very clear defense to read that was going to hand off, and they weren't a center. Speaking of when Pritchard against Philly has his head down and is dribbling incessantly with no regard for who's around him, he's going to shoot no matter what, and it's very easy for that first attempt against Philly for 3-4 guys to collapse on him in the paint. And then the second attempt, he pump faked one guy, but there's a second guy because they know he's not going to pass the ball. Pritchard, for all of Drew Carter and Brian Scalabrini's love affair with him on their broadcasts, and yeah, he deserved the Sixth Man of the Year last year. Unfortunately, Pritchard is a selfish player. He really, I think that's not a reach. When the Celtics were the top seed in the East, a couple or now technically 3 seasons ago, still weren't playing their best basketball, and people saw the writing on the wall that it wasn't going to end in a championship, which it didn't. But others, said, "Oh well, they're the top seed in the East." But when they were the top seed in the East, he cried that he wasn't traded at the trade deadline. Usually, team first players don't do that. So Pritchard, there's going to be a lot of selfish moments from him, and I don't think that's some far-fetched take. I think that's reflective by his play, and we saw that opening night. He's also, he had, I think, over 20 points against Detroit, but he's on the season heading into Monday's game against New Orleans, shooting 4 for 22, 18% from 3. So if he can't make those shots, then it's going to, that's not going to be good either. So, with Pritchard, it's, that's kind of how he plays. And when he doesn't make the shot, it's, and then he has another attempt, and, if there's 2 guys on you, if there's 3 guys collapsing on you, that means someone's open and he's not even looking to pass. He had more, I think, turnover. He had 2 assists, as the starting point guard opening night. Like, you can't do that. So, like, again, he's a champion. He gave a great memory with the half-court shot, but it's he's finally getting the role he wants as starting point guard in the NBA, the one he cried over a couple seasons ago when he wasn't traded, and let's see what he does with it. I think he's going to have games where he does go off for 30 and 40, but let's hope it's in winning efforts, unlike, Brown's 41 against Detroit, which was in a losing effort. So we'll see. I mean, I think Joe Mazzulla is going to have a tough year, like a 10-man rotation that doesn't have many, great players right now in it. They've started Sam Hauser, they started Hugo Gonzalez at Detroit. Like, it's not going to be a complete roster. So I think Joe Mazzulla not necessarily will get exposed, but I think his shtick with the media and press, will he'll have to sort of figure it out if this is going to be a losing season, and maybe, temper himself a bit and lose a bit of the coyness and press conferences. So we'll see about that. Against Detroit, Xavier Tillman, like my dad was telling me, they said on the telecast they had over 40 people in the stands. He's from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He played at Michigan State. He played over 14 minutes the first 2 games on average, and then he was a do not play coach's decision. So, that's something that it's professional sports. Like, it's not rec basketball, but like, is there a reason why Mazzulla didn't have him in the lineup? It didn't work out either way. Like, could he have thrown him a bone in a lost season? That's kind of up for debate in that sense, where, like, if Mazzulla tries to get too cute and, kind of has these weird sort of press conferences or weird in-game decisions. If the team's losing, I don't know how it's going to really be viewed. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. Like, again, Tillman is not some incredible player.
Well,
I know
he scored against the Knicks. He scored 7 points, 3 of 3 field goals in
oh
14
yeah,
minutes.
like he's averaging a handful of points, but yeah, I mean it's just a weird.
And it's like it's again, like you said, they're going 0-3. It's, they're not going to win the championship this year. It's almost Belichickian of like some
Yeah,
weird reason, and it's like, the
yeah,
Celtics also pride themselves on not just like they don't run themselves like Belichick did the Patriots. They're you know uh, October 24th was Jaylen Brown Day because of the things he does off the court. They're an organization that obviously, even though unfortunately most people haven't recognized it, have been on the forefront of human issues, since the 1960s or 1950s. And, for him to just do that to a player, even not to have that, is just bizarre. For Missoula not to have Tillman play again. Tillman's a champion too. He had a key 3 in Dallas during those 2024 finals. He, had a death in the family during that run. It's just bizarre from a human perspective, from an organization. Again, in Missoula as even a person, Tatum, Brown, other Celtics players giving him such credit for being, like the organization has tried to be somewhat of a helpful to people as people, right?
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like professional sports are cutthroat, and like it's not a participation thing, but at the same time, it's you know, like room to have a heart. I think in a way, like especially considering how the game and season so far has turned out, and then even the other thing, like you said, with Tillman isn't going to be an all-star. Who knows how long he'll even be in the league, but like the three-pointer is kind of he didn't come close to the impact like a PJ Brown made, but like it's similar to the Eastern Conference semifinal PJ Brown shot, where you are going to remember Tillman hitting that one shot if you recall each title run during our lifetime. So that's kind of a couple takeaways early on in the season. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously, it's early, a lot of time left, and like this is kind of a quick, instant reaction to how the season's started thus far. And I'm eating crow in regards to the first couple weeks of the Patriots season. Happily eating crow that the Patriots are on a 5-game win streak. As lost as they looked those first few weeks, not just losing a couple games, but in terms of discipline and so on. So like they didn't look good, and now they're on a roll. So I'm sure Brown will have some 50+ point games. I'm sure White, even Pritchard will have some big games, maybe like a Baylor Shireman, or Minot game will be like a 20 to 30 point showing where we have some of those memories. But overall, I think we're kind of, as you said, either like Brad Stevens, built the roster, and I think he kind of has an idea as to how he's going to, how it's going to play out, and hopefully set them up not for this year, obviously, but for next year, with maybe either a lottery pick or at least Tatum being back with some movable pieces and/or expiring contracts to move forward for next year, not this year. The one good thing is, I will say, like, their City Edition uniform, for some reason, they say it's the first Celtic jersey without green. This might be a good year for them to have a uniform without green, because it won't be the Celtics that we, are expect, I guess. But no idea still why they want to make a jersey without green, but this is a good year for them to have it, because it's probably going to be a lost in betweener year.
No, and even with the start of the season, people in the media were saying they'd play Missoula ball. They shot up 33-34% from three the first couple games. They've given some effort. I mean, Hugo Gonzalez got compliments against the Knicks from Blake Griffin and people on Amazon Prime's broadcast. Even though he didn't score against the Pistons in the third game in 18 minutes. But yeah, I think the Missoula ball of the hope of playing tough defense, playing fast. It sounds good, and it might make for some games. And obviously, like you even said, the Patriots under Vrabel, obviously an adjustment with a new coach. The Celtics an adjustment with the roster. Maybe that an 0-3 start. Again, they're not going to turn it fully around probably and be raising a banner a year from now, and Tatum coming back, right? As of now, Tatum should probably not come back, even though a week ago it was, well, let's see what happens. But with all that being said, if they do improve, credit to Missoula. If not, like you said, some of this stuff will fall on him. And eventually Brown, White, White to start the year shooting poorly, 3 of 11 from 3 against Detroit. Even Pritchard, 21 points on 16 shots against Detroit. Sam Hauser's been shooting decently to start the year, but it's just, to your point, having a deep rotation, but with not a lot of substance is not going to be a great thing for the Celtics. So any last Celtics thoughts, Matt, before we move on to some other NBA action?
Yeah, so I mean, for the Celtics, obviously, it's a long way to go. It's still very early, so things can change one way or another. But early instant reaction, definitely going to be some tough watches this year, and we'll see. I mean, the other thing with the Celtics too, like this isn't basketball hell. It's just purgatory. It's just a one season limbo where overall they should be back and competitive with the flexibility set up. Obviously, they had to get out from under the second apron with the economics of the new salary cap and stuff. So hopefully, Brad Stevens figures out the best way, and the new owner is willing to spend up as much as they can. And next season it's not a rebuild; it's a reload.
All right, after covering the Celtics winless start, let's talk some more positive news than that in our NBA fandom. So the league is involved in a terrible betting scandal with Portland Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard, formerly Scary Terry, with the Celtics, Terry Rozier, being charged by the FBI. Not a perfect timing with the first week of the season. This is something that came out of nowhere after the opening night of the NBA, because Terry Rozier had been cleared by the league. And then we had, the FBI having a press conference on CNN and other networks to basically talk about some bad news for the league, right? Matt, do you have any opening thoughts about this?
I mean, not much. Just that if it was a Miami Heat guard charged, I wish it was Tyler.
And now with Rozier being that Heat guard charged, maybe the Celtics could retroactively get the 2018 Eastern Conference title after his what did he shoot? 0 for 10 from
Yeah, he was
3.
0 for 10 from 3. I think 2 of 14 from the field. They lost the game. Well, only scored like 79 points, lost by a few points. I mean, that was the end of the Stevens. I mean, it's like you said, it's also Missoula ball too, where, it hurt them last year just shooting threes at all costs. But that was a game where, they were like 7 of 39 or something, where they, couldn't, just kept shooting threes no matter what. And then you only lose by a few points at the end. But yeah, I mean, obviously Rozier was amazing that postseason. It was a great run with a young core with veteran injuries, and loved the dynamic between him and Drew Bledsoe, the Scary Terry shirts, and Drew Bledsoe going to game, they wearing them wearing each other's jerseys. That was a fun year, but a tough end, and obviously the legality of sports betting back then wasn't as it wasn't in place, but the whole thing with obviously the mafia being involved, and a lot of depth to it in regards to different gambling prop bets and fixed poker games. It's definitely going to be something that more will come out. I'm sure. Like it isn't good for the league. I just think it's this is the craziness. You have ESPN the other day taking their bottom line has a DraftKings logo, and sometimes bottom line says the betting odds, and they had to actually darken it while they were talking about this. And I understand, Mike Greenberg saying, "Oh well, there's a fine line, and you as an athlete can't do this." But if the mafia is involved, who knows if the mafia doesn't really play by, the rules. If you're strong armed into doing something, or threatened, a player is going to have to do what they have to do. Again, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying, like, who knows the full story. We'll, I guess, see what comes out of it. But at the end of the day, it's tough where you look at, certain guys, like you said, Terry Rozier. I know what Dante Jones is a former Celtic. He played with them briefly. And obviously Chauncey Billups has been well chronicled as a former Celtic too, with Rick Pitino. But just for the league overall, it's not a great look. But it's not shocking. You had a couple guys banned last year, and then with sports betting legal, even talking to my dad, it's our dad. It's like teams weren't going to Vegas. Like the NBA had their summer league there, but and they're going to eventually get a team there. But you have the Oakland A's now in Sacramento as the Athletics going to Las Vegas. You have the Oakland Raiders now as the Las Vegas Raiders. You have the Vegas Golden Knights. So you're going to have, when the NBA expands, hopefully to Seattle and I guess Las Vegas, you're going to have 4 major sports teams there. Especially like that's kind of crazy to think, but with gambling being legal now, it's not outlandish, and you're gonna have this come up more because it's out there. Like it just is. Like it's on the books, and you're allowed to do it as a citizen of age. But obviously, I understand why there's rules and laws for players in the game. But in terms of like the prop bets and Rozier possibly, making sure his minutes hit the under or whatever, like, I haven't really like delved too deeply into it. You're going to have this stuff come up. Like, I don't really care much about an illegal poker game that much. Obviously Billups looks like he's probably done for it, but, I don't know if it's true irony because again, the players are supposed to know you can't, you're ruining the integrity of the game, but at the same time, like it's gonna happen. Like it just is with reality, and it's just crazy where you have it's awful, but then every other commercials, sports betting, every day there's a new promo to join one of the apps to do sports betting. So, it's part of society now, whereas a decade ago, it was such a taboo topic. So I think that's kind of the way of the world now, where, if it's legal in society, you're going to have players get caught up in it one way or another.
Yeah, I think, even especially starting with Chauncey Billups, good timing on him to get into the Hall of Fame. He got in. The late Pete Rose didn't, so I don't know if the Hall of Fame will remove him, but at least he got his moment in the sun for that. We should mention also the in some of the headlines for this. Again, we're not going to dive too deep into it. The Raptors, the Hornets, the Blazers obviously involved, and something that piqued our interest, which was a positive out of all of this. The Lakers were mentioned as possibly being involved. So, I mean, if that goes further, we might, cover it. Even Jones in Cleveland during the same time as LeBron. Maybe, this could be something that brings us a little more intrigue to the McDonoughs here. But as far as fans of the whole league, the optics are terrible. New TV partners, young stars. It's horrible to have this happen the first week of the season. And I think the other thing with this, like you said, whether it be fixing over and unders, whatever it may be, the NBA has kind of dealt with this, and we've talked about it even on this podcast of, possibly literally this episode, if the Celtics don't make the playoffs, maybe Adam Silver will reward them with the first pick to get, Brockton native Dibonsa on the team, right? And this is because historically, when you think about the NBA and the draft lottery, people have said it's rigged even last year, right? That's been obvious. So, Ewing to the Knicks, Rose to the Bulls, LeBron, and Anthony Bennett and Kyrie Irving to the
And
Cavaliers.
Wiggins, the post
Yep.
LeBron Cavs.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So yeah.
Flag to Dallas after the
Cooper
Doncic
Fleck
trade.
to Dallas after the Luka trade to the Lakers. Tim Donaghy, the betting scandal. He's somehow the only ref involved. And now this. So it's like that's the thing. We all can, we had to hear it from one end of the Patriots cheating and getting calls from the refs. Now we're the ones saying it about the Chiefs with calls from the refs. This happens in sports, right? Rob Manfred is happy the Dodgers are back in the World Series. So it's all, some of this stuff just happens and is talked about, right? Even the NHL, we've mentioned, okay, the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning because of state income tax. Like there's uneven playing fields. There's conspiracy theories. So if we think about having a tinfoil hat on, it's not that far fetched just from circumstantial evidence, obviously. But when you have the FBI charging player and coach with anything regards to betting, it's not good, right? So, forget a 30 for 30. Some people on sports talk radio are saying this could be a major motion picture, like something out of Goodfellas or, the movie The Sting, which was actually the mom and dad went up to this Sting on their first date, correct?
Yeah,
When
in
Netflix
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
off last year, but again, illegal poker games. Not that we've ever been good at anything to do with cards, not even collecting baseball cards, but those things will get people just talking about conspiracies and how the league is rigged. And, we've said that here, we've said that just in conversation, but as NBA fans, it's just not good, right? And I think
Yeah, I
too.
mean, I'm all for rigging the lottery for the Celtics, but
Well,
other than that,
yeah. No, when it's your team, it's
in
rigged.
America, it is innocent until proven guilty. Except in terms
Court
of the
of public
Lakers, I
opinion.
demand that the
Oh,
Lakers
okay.
play be suspended until a full and completed investigation has been
Oh yeah, I mean
completed.
that I think would be helpful to all in this. But
Yeah,
like you even mentioned earlier, when the NBA, every single sports league is partners with betting sites. Again, like you said, this is why they never did it because of the fear of this. And even if it's just perception, like you said, innocent until proven guilty, we're big believers on that, obviously. But just a court of public opinion coming out and saying that this is bad for the league is rigged, etc. This is why they didn't have legalized betting, like you said, teams in Las Vegas, etc. Major League Baseball, obviously, maybe if it wasn't Terry Rozier and a Trailblazers coach, Shohei Ohtani is hero of the NLCS, had the best performance single game history, obviously in the World Series against the Toronto Blue Jays, and his interpreter was arrested. So this is where leagues handle things differently. Adam
but the
Silver,
NBA
they don't.
did. The NBA did do that.
Oh,
You know,
yes. And then
like
Silver
for
said,
Otani,
we don't have the
Otani, we don't know
resources
what.
as the federal government.
Yeah, no, I mean, but Otani, obviously, his interpreter probably could have taken the fall. But as you said, if LeBron, for example, just as a person, like a LeBron. Let me not say LeBron specifically, but a LeBron type is, would the league handle it differently than a Terry Rozier or like Michael Porter's brother who played sparingly in Toronto? Like that's the other thing
Yeah.
where like
Well, I mean,
Otani,
some say
like
again another
like Stern
conspiracy
did
theory.
that. I mean,
Yeah, that
there was a tweet where how the league used to handle gambling under David Stern, and it showed a picture of Michael Jordan playing baseball. So like that's
yeah.
kind of the prevailing line of thought of what happened for Michael Jordan's baseball sabbatical. So that's the thing. I don't know if Adam Silver is going to be like David Stern should some high profile player or a non fringe like I know Rozier is a rotation player for the most part, a solid. I mean, he made a lot of money in the NBA with Charlotte, and was obviously a rotation player for his career. But I'm saying like he's kind of on the downturn anyway in a sense. So we'll have to kind of see how it plays out again, and obviously kind of see who's mentioned or how the investigation continues, or maybe this is the extent of it. And that's the thing, like you'd hope it's the extent of it for just the league's sake, and that they're not questioning, like you said, even with Tim Donaghy, like I'm sure there was more, but David Stern could have put the kibosh on that to protect the league. So we'll see what happens, and go from there in the sense of if there's more, if this is it, it still is a bad.
Yeah, and like I said, again, the NBA has new TV partners, so let's change gears a little bit off the poker table back to the court and the studio. So the NBA on NBC is back. Um, all the '90s nostalgia, Round Ball Rock is back, and we were talking earlier that it's already better than ESPN completely. Um, and when you think about what happened with, TNT ending its coverage, you couldn't have had a better kind of situation for the NBA and NBC to come back, especially for people in their 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s, of that being like a, very important time in their lives. My one thing is, if you wanted one network to go, I would have rather had ESPN go, have NBC and TNT together instead of ESPN, because NBC is, it has the Olympics, Sunday Night Football, feels like just a bigger network. The ABC NBA Finals production has gone down and down, right? Like they've had, the intros are back, but they were gone for some years, starting lineups. And I know this is part on the league and Adam Silver, who, I think his time hopefully will be limited as commissioner. But the production of the finals and playoffs, it hasn't felt as big, less pageantry. And even though TNT cut the Celtics banner night a year ago, which we can never fully forgive, it still had the best studio show. It was a great secondary network. And I think just thinking about what ESPN does best now is inside the NBA with the TNT crew, right? So like they slap the ESPN logo on already a great show, and they just let them do their thing that they did on TNT for years. So it's that's their only good part of coverage. But yeah, thinking about the TV, I think Amazon Prime, I didn't mind either. I thought the picture was really good. The Celtics screen looked beautiful as they were getting crushed by the Knicks, but and even the studio had some very good production. The scoreboard didn't work at first for the Celtics' first points, and then my laptop was going out, but still on the television screen it was better than ESPN as well. Not as good as NBC, not as good as studio as NBC, but I think NBC and Amazon for first impressions did well. Obviously, ESPN can say, well, these networks, it's their first impression, they better do well. But again, like I mentioned earlier, ESPN has had the finals forever, and it's like their production, their pageantry, their in-game experience and studios has gotten worse and worse, where again ESPN's more focused on weekday talking heads talking than actual kind of coverage. Matt, your thoughts on some of the TV stuff?
Well, so I did not see the Inside the NBA on ESPN, so I hope it's similar to how it was when they
Yeah,
were on
it's like the
Tuesday.
same studio and everything.
Very good, yeah. So like that's a plus. I did see. Well, I saw a screen grab of it. I just didn't watch it. The NBC, I didn't like. I wasn't interested in watching the Thunder banner raise. Like obviously, the team looks like a NBA Live '03 created team, and their banner reflected it. And had no interest in seeing Chet Holmgren get a ring.
Well, in some ways, their banner was simple, almost like a Celtics banner, but when you don't have the history and tradition,
Yeah,
and again,
no,
they,
I mean,
they have the worst logo in the league. The
yeah, well, I
OKC,
mean,
like
nothing about them makes sense. I mean,
the
even
Thunder
I
logo should
watched about,
lean into clouds, lightning, the buffalo or bison out there.
yeah,
Even like if they got permission from tribes out there with certain Native American heritage, and they do none of that, it's just like a terrible logo.
yeah. I
And
mean, they had the one city uniform that had, or maybe a couple that had Native American, components. But I mean, even like, I mean, the whole, it's just like I hope they don't win again. I can't do Oklahoma City. I can't like even. I mean, I love the show on ESPN's SEC network, True South. They did an Oklahoma City episode, and like literally half of it was at a literal stockyard and at a place at the bottom of a hotel. I mean, there's literally it looks like like of all the places, and he's gone to towns of like 3,000 people. I would not want to. I have no interest in ever going to Oklahoma City.
well,
It
and
like talks about a steakhouse that is the only one left that everything's closed. So it's like, even I had no interest in seeing everyone put on their t-shirts, like the same coordinating t-shirts. It's I didn't want to see, I'm like, again, like I said last year, I just don't understand how that's like a good atmosphere. It's such a contrived, unauthentic, non-genuine atmosphere from a viewer on TV. Like, do the people, are they told how to put their socks on in the morning? Like, are there banner ads when you're in the bathroom of Oklahoma City's arena to tell you to wash your hands? Like, this is like it appears that it's such a robotic um, atmosphere and environment. I'm gonna barely watch their home games. I just can't. Like it
well,
just
yeah. I mean, I watched a lot of. I
can't do
didn't
it.
watch the banner. That it was a good game, obviously.
Yeah, I
Going
saw
to
a
double
handful of
overtime.
minutes. But
And Durant calling the timeout, them not calling it.
yeah,
The Shangun looked good for Houston. It was a good game. Obviously, then I went
yeah.
to
No,
bed.
I mean they're a great
I
team.
saw
They're
Al
champ.
Horford in a Warriors uniform, Marcus Smart in the Lakers, and that was kind of enough watching either of those
Yeah, but
franchises.
like it's
But
with
even the OKC game was a good game, and it ended with your favorite play in the NBA, SGA.
yeah. No, he foul like it was a foul ban. Like he drew the foul, but like that's like that. I wasn't like I saw that play, and then I was like, okay, I'm glad I didn't watch most of the game because like I don't need to. Like it's boring to me, And then again, like oh my gosh, everyone's wearing the same T-shirt. Like that doesn't like. Do they have any personality? Is there any independence there? Like it's just. I mean, they're like the parade was pathetic. Like I don't like. I really hope when we get to the finals predictions. Like I'm not going to pick Oklahoma City just because I don't want to see them in the finals again. Again, a great team, well coached by UConn alum, great players. It's just I can't. I like that's what to me that makes the NBA look just like that to me makes it like that's a rigged environment. We're talking about rigging stuff. That's a rigged environment. Like Seattle should have that team. They got their championship and 12 people showed up to celebrate it at the parade. Like good for them. Hopefully they don't get another one. I will say the NBC, even though I'm not a big Mike Tirico guy, um, I liked the NBA on NBC. Obviously, like you said, nostalgic purposes. Hearing the John Tesh's round ball rock was awesome. Um, well
I
documented
mean,
on my
John
Twitter.
Tesh, Round Ball Rock is as iconic as John Tesh Intelligence for Your Life.
Yeah, and I am not a Michael Jordan guy by any means. I'm glad Scott Burrell got a ring with him, but I wish the Sonics and Jazz won a couple of those, and even obviously before we were coherent. It would be great if the Blazers and Suns had gotten one, but it was really cool seeing Michael Jordan on the halftime show. Like the few minutes with him, I thought was great. I thought he had great perspective. I thought he spoke, you know, I thought what he spoke about was an awesome perspective hearing from him. Like, the greatest living basketball player, perhaps currently, to be like, I'm giving back to the game. I'm returning the favor, so to speak. Like I'm paying it forward, and I'm going to share my thoughts on the game. I feel like that was needed. I think I loved what he said about time, kind of paraphrasing the Warren Buffett quote. You could have all the money in the world, but you can't buy time. So he talked about having time and spending time with family. And, he's a billionaire, but he hasn't played a game of basketball in years or shot a basketball in years. I mentioned how at the Ryder Cup he made a free throw at his Airbnb. Well, not Airbnb, but the mansion he stayed in for the Ryder Cup's host wanted his grandson to see Michael Jordan shoot a basket on their hoop, and he made it. I thought that was 10 out of 10. Like, I thought it
Well, yeah,
was
we have an
awesome.
avid Bulls fan listener who loved
Yeah,
it.
and I'm not a Michael Jordan person. I've hated on the guy for years, but like that was great. And like this week, he's going to talk about load management. So I think having that old school perspective, someone like him weekly or however often he's on, is going to be awesome to hear, because I really loved him giving just like a personal perspective, coming across as a human, and really speaking from the heart and frankly. And I hope he speaks frankly in terms of like certain stuff with the NBA. They probably won't have him give much thought on the gambling issue. I bet he might
Yeah.
gain from that. And
Well,
I think,
Craig Carton, has fallen up for years.
yeah,
And
oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah,
well,
yeah, he's.
maybe I'd trust Michael Jordan to be a lot more
No, I'd
genuine.
rather hear Michael Jordan talk about it than hear
Well,
Carton.
I'd rather hear anyone talk besides Craig Carton, who knows less about sports than any
Oh yeah, well,
successful
but that's
sports.
his shtick. I mean, that's that. Oh, I don't know this, but that's my like. Oh, I don't know it, but that's my deal. Like Oh, I don't know the answer, but I'm pretending to be dumb. We know a lot of personalities who do that in the sports media industry now. But hopefully Jordan, like that's a lot of it. I'm sure is. I think it's obviously a ton of it was pre-recorded. Before the season, but that I'm excited for, and it's good NBC is back. I wish TNT still had it, but ESPN, I it'll be tolerable, but I'm not a Kendrick Perkins hater. He was a starting center, completed the starting five to never lose a playoff series when healthy with the Celtics, and '08 champion. I don't love how the team has kind of blacklisted him, but he's becoming insufferable as an analyst. I'm not as far gone with him as the rest of the country, but between Brian Windhorst saying that he didn't consider Jason Tatum an MVP candidate a couple years ago because of his postseason play the year before, then Monica McNutt with like a Peter Brady type scream saying Embiid was because he scored 70 in a game. Like if that's the analysis, the ESPN is really meaningless. Like
If
Malik.
that's the analysis on ESPN, then they should maybe buy out Duck on a Rock and have
Yeah, I
us
mean,
do
like
it.
Malika Andrews does a good job. There's good reporters, obviously. I'm just like some of the rationale is just it's ludicrous. It's insane, and it really like they get laps are run around them now by the other networks and Amazon. I didn't mind it. Like in terms of having four former players with Taylor Rooks, like I think that's maybe have a media person. Like I don't need to see and I like Dirk, but like Don like Luca congratulating him, it's like a two like have a media person who knows how to do an interview, I guess. It's like it's kind of it appeared weird to me that like, oh, like Dirk, you did a great job interviewing, like but that is his job now, like
Yeah,
is it
no,
are you
I
gonna do
get that. I
victory
think the one
laps
thing what
pats on
I
the back?
like about
And
what
Udonis has them. Udonis has them. Even if it was a locker room pregame speech with emotions running high, to just utter the words "F Bill Russell," like that is unforgivable. And I will tune out Udonis Haslam until the end of time. I have no interest in hearing him at all.
Yeah, I think the only thing about Udonis Haslam that I like was 2020 in the bubble. I was trying to lip read him, not rip him, even though we just did, but lip read him after the Heat beat the Celtics in the bubble conference finals, and I swear he was saying to Tatum, "Your time will come, your time will come," and it did. 4 years later, but hopefully Tatum can at least. Hopefully match has them with the rings. I do think NBC and Amazon leaning into a lot of former players. It's probably trying to like slightly mimic, a host, and then all players like inside the NBA on TNT did. Obviously, they'll never replicate that, but I did think they did a decent job.
Yeah,
All the
no, it wasn't
players,
bad. I mean,
and I
TNT
think
will
the other
never
thing is
TNT will never be beaten, but like I understand, yeah, how they're kind of trying that, and like you even said, the feed, like the Thursday night football games for Amazon with all the money Jeff Bezos has, that production didn't seem. Maybe it was, the internet too, but like it seemed like it was a lot better for basketball. Like they had some kinks worked out, whereas when they started doing the live football games, it seemed like there was a little bit more of a learning curve and some room for error, and they've kind of grown past.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, I think even with the players like the Fox pre and post game with David Ortiz, Alex Rodriguez, Derek Jeter, with Kevin Burkhardt, it's kind of like that the NBA version would be inside the NBA on TNT, or that crew already. So you can't have like three of them, right? And I guess one credit to ESPN is having certain writers, even though firing Zach Lowe and others, that kind of took that away. But I mean, overall, I think again to kind of wrap up the TV section, yeah, like NBC, then Amazon, then ESPN, and we kind of started this talking with about the studios, giving some credit to Michael Jordan. Just want to touch on some of the greatest living players in the NBA today that are playing. LeBron James is hurt, right? So one huge thing the start of the week is Victor Wembanyama, basically looking like the player that most of the NBA would fear and probably should fear now. I don't know how good the Spurs could be. Great for Steph Castle. They're on the track here, to maybe not do what they did with Tim Duncan, but I mean, Wemby looked incredible. And I think when we think about as we wrap up with just some quick predictions, he's a player that will he kind of take a meteoric rise this year, or is it next year? Is it going to be like a 2015 Steph Curry as far as changing his franchise's fortunes and really the power structure of the league? I don't know, but just want to mention that. Are you ready to kind of wrap up with some NBA Finals predictions?
Yeah, definitely. So I think obviously it's incredibly early, but I think, as I alluded to, not going to pick Oklahoma City to repeat, even though it seems like, I know for, the at least Las Vegas odds, it's, they're heavily favored too. I'm going to say, I'll go with Houston in the West. I like Ime Udoka a lot, even though Neil Long weirdly still blames the Celtics for a lot of what happened. But I think Ime Udoka is a good coach. I still like a lot of what he did in his 1 year in Boston, on the court, not off of it. But um, so I still think that a lot of that was a private matter too. But that full story will never fully come out, I'm sure. But I think I'll pick the Rockets. I think Durant. This is his last shot. I do think Golden State has a really great chance. I would say, I do. The Spurs are a great story. I'd love if Memphis could keep it up. But and even like the Clippers, I wouldn't mind seeing make a run. But I'll say Houston beats Golden State in the conference finals, and then fortunately speaking, it looks like the Knicks are the real deal. Whether Milwaukee has a renaissance or, Philly, who seems like the early dark horse candidate, especially with how good Edgecombe looked. I think those are a couple teams that might make a little bit of a splash a year. But it'd be great if, like
Wait, so
Orlando.
what's your East pick?
I'm getting to it. So it would be great if like the Magic could, pull off a run here. A team like Orlando who's young and hasn't won it. But I do think it's going to be Cleveland and the Knicks. So I'll say the Cavaliers make the finals, and I'll go. I don't know. We'll I guess I'll say the Rockets beat the Cavaliers.
Yeah, all right. So I thought you were gonna have the same finals prediction as I did. This is all unscripted on Duck and a Rock, besides the parts we script out before each episode. And even though this is a Twins episode, we didn't talk about any of our predictions before. I thought you were going to go a different direction. So I have the Rockets winning the West too. I think again, OKC tried not to be boring. I think OKC could definitely repeat. Um, but I just to pick someone else other than OKC, I think Houston has a good shot at it this year. The West is going to be crazy, but I think Minnesota took a little step back. God forbid the Lakers make a run. But I do think Golden State has a shot depending on their health. I don't know if their age will catch up to them in the spring, but I'm going to go with Houston in the West. And I did struggle with this. NBA and NBC, round ball rock being back, it feels like the 90s. So again, we were too young to remember it. Our first finals we remember would be Bulls Sonics um, in 96, but Rockets 94 and 95 repeat. And I was thinking between Orlando Magic or New York Knicks, a rematch of either the 94-95 finals. And I think Knicks listeners might think this is just reverse psychology jinx, but I think it's the Knicks year. I think they have enough to at least get to the finals. It's going to be Knicks Rockets. I also, after the betting scandal, to put a tinfoil hat on, what the NBA needs is the largest distraction it could to off the court things to put the focus back on the court. So nothing would be bigger than the Knicks at least getting to the finals, if not winning the championship. Again, I respect Knicks fans. I think they're the second best fan base in the league behind the Celtics. I respect all their players for the most part, besides Towns. Mike Brown, the new coach. I just think the East is just severely, weakened compared to the West. And not to throw any shade if Cleveland, Orlando, or the Knicks or whatever team steps up and wins it. But I think the Knicks will play the Rockets in the 2026 NBA Finals. And this is a way Adam Silver can definitely take the heat off the league as a whole. If it would almost be, like a similar to a Chicago Cubs type situation. Not exactly right, but not as big a drought. But one of the marquee franchises that hasn't done anything in decades. If they could get to the finals or win it, I think Adam Silver would be thanking them, and he might even go as far as WNBA. Hopefully, former Commissioner Kathy Engelbert did. He, instead of a Statue of Liberty and New York skyline dress when he hands the Knicks their championship trophy, maybe he'd wear at least a tie with big apples on it, because the league, I think, literally needs it, and I think he'll make it happen. And the Knicks and Rockets will as well. All right, so we've talked long enough about the NBA and the Celtics in particular, but we, covered some bases, about basketball. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Please follow Duck on a Rock on social media, like and subscribe on the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube videos. Special thank you to our co-host and executive producer, Matt, we met. And thank you to all of the listeners here at Duck and Rock Sports for being a part of our flock.